8 spine-tingling encounters filmed right here. Ordinary cameras, ordinary places, moments that stop time for whoever watched them. Which one would keep you awake tonight? Over the next several minutes, we'll walk through 8 clips. Tripod footage, phone clips, CCTV, live streams, a live photo burst. For each moment, I'll describe what the camera shows, what the person who uploaded it says, a handful of mundane possibilities, and the reason the clip still resists a neat explanation. Cameras don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth either. Look closely. Our first clip comes from a restored chateau on the outskirts of town. Lisa and Ted say they installed a small tripod cam in a hallway while they worked overnight on refinishing a series of antique doors. The camera was fixed to a stair landing, pointed straight at a heavy wooden door. The frame is stable. For most of the night, stillness and low light. Then, near 3 in the morning, the latch eases. The bolt slides half an inch. The door breathes inward. A shadow crosses the panel and the camera tilts up a few degrees. Not a sudden jerk, but the slow, deliberate upward motion as if something brushed the lens. There's no visible hand in the frame, no figure entering. The homeowners say the latch was properly set and that the door had been secured. They also insist the camera was tightened to the banister and had not been touched. Plausible explanations here are straightforward. An old latch can ease with humidity and temperature changes. A gust of wind can creep through gaps and shift a door enough for a camera to register it. A person off-frame might have nudged the door or the tripod. The tripod head itself can slowly loosen over hours, a phenomenon called tripod creep. Mechanical settling in older houses sometimes makes doors move as well. Another possibility is that something as trivial as the floor settling or the building shifting under a passing vehicle could transmit to a secured camera and create a slight shift in framing at the same moment a door swings. And yet, the combination is what makes this clip stick in your chest. The latch and the tilt appear almost synchronized. The camera's slow upward motion doesn't look like an off-camera hand wading into frame. It looks like a surface contact. If the tripod had loosened, you'd expect wobble over more frames. Here the movement reads like a brief brush. That is the heart of the puzzle. Each individual explanation fits part of the image, but the timing and the particular pattern of motion leave room for doubt. It doesn't prove anything, but it refuses a neat dismissal. If you like authentic creepy footage, hit subscribe and send us what you've got. There's a submission link in the description. We feature real uploads and follow up when we can. Animals often sense something before we do. Our second clip is an Instagram phone video shot by a homeowner who prefers to be identified only by first name. The footage opens on a narrow hallway lit by a single lamp. Their family dog, Max, lounges near the doorway, tail slow and steady. Then, in a heartbeat, Max goes rigid. He turns his head toward a dark patch by the far wall, growls once, and bolts blindly down the stairs, as if pulled by a cord. The camera follows too late. You hear the owner call, "Max?" There are no voices off camera, and the owner says no one else was in the house. What explains a dog's sudden alarm? Dogs respond to scents, ultra-high frequencies we can't hear, or the faintest rustle of a rodent behind the wall. Dogs will also react to minute changes in air pressure, or to sounds that human ears miss entirely. Infrasound, very low-frequency vibrations caused by distant machinery or wind, can make animals uneasy. Another mundane possibility, a shadow from a passing car through a nearby window, a screen door that caught and released light, or a human briefly out of frame. And we must consider the role of expectation. The owner's claim that nobody was home is sincere and important, but people can forget someone briefly stepping through a back entrance, especially when startled. What gives this clip its weight is Max's body language. Animals don't perform for cameras. There's a genuine startle, a change in posture and intent that reads as instinct. That instinct is meaningful, but not conclusive. It tells us something happened, and that something was enough to trigger an automatic response in a living creature. Whether that something was atmospheric, mechanical, or something else remains open. Patterns carry more weight than isolated incidents. The third clip comes from a granddaughter who has been documenting odd disturbances at her grandmother's house for years. The footage we're shown is a compiled montage. Cups that slide an inch and topple, a picture frame that leans further and then falls, a kitchen utensil that skitters across the counter at night. These are not single-frame anomalies. The uploader says items have shifted repeatedly over weeks and months. We see timestamps on each short clip, and notes like second night, kitchen, 3:14 a.m. The grandmother, a woman in her 70s, insists she has no pets and lives alone. She's interviewed briefly on camera and speaks quietly about tapping noises she hears after midnight. Mechanical causes deserve the first look. Unlevel shelves, poorly balanced objects, vibration from nearby trains or heavy trucks, house settling, or seasonal expansion and contraction of wood. Small rodents can push things. Magnetic fields or nearby appliances can slowly move lightweight items. Draft currents in older homes can be unpredictable. Edited footage can dramatize sequence and make isolated slips look coordinated. But a pattern over weeks changes the equation. If the same objects move in similar ways on different nights, and if household members independently report noises and cold spots, you get a cumulative effect that is more than one odd recording. Skepticism remains healthy here. Compilations can be curated to emphasize the spooky moments and omit mundane explanations. Still, long-term repetition adds a different kind of credibility. Whether the cause is a slow structural issue or something we don't yet explain, a repeated disturbance that affects the rhythm of a household is a real thing, and that realness demands empathy. The grandmother's unease is real, even if the ultimate cause turns out to be nothing supernatural. Institutional spaces change how we read anomalies. Our fourth clip is from hospital CCTV, a corridor cam in a non-clinical service wing where laundry and supplies pass through in the night. The footage shows, at two separate points, a rolling laundry trolley drifting down a sloped corridor, with no one visible nearby, and a service door that opens on its own, then swings back shut. Timestamps on each feed line up with staff reports that we were between rounds at those times. Hospital staff who shared the clip asked us to anonymize names and urged us not to speculate on patient care, appropriately cautious, since this is a workplace and cadence matters. In these environments, mechanical explanations multiply. Slight gradients can cause wheeled carts to move. Sensor-controlled doors can respond to software glitches or pressure changes. Motion-activated lights can create the feeling of movement where there is none by switching illumination on and off. CCTV artifacts also matter. Compression algorithms sometimes smear motion and create trailing images that look like figures. One camera angle can show an empty corridor, while a second angle, out of view, might capture the person who set the cart in motion. There are also maintenance factors, a wheel stuck briefly, a door misaligned, that produce movement. And yet, the footage carries a particular chill because hospital spaces are meant to be calming and orderly. Seeing motion where no staff are visible triggers an instinctive unease. It asks us to imagine vulnerability in a place built to prevent it. That emotional context amplifies the footage without proving anything beyond the fact that something moved when no one was on camera. The right follow-up in cases like this is usually not a leap to the paranormal, but a check of the building's physical systems and camera feeds for other corroborating angles. Attics have their own language. The fifth clip comes from Jess, who posts short TikTok videos after spending afternoons going through boxes in her late friend Derek's things. She shot a handful of vertical clips in an old converted attic, slanted rafters, dust motes caught in sunbeams, a hard-to-define shadow that seems to gather, and then a faint thud in the background. These are intimate, up-close observations. Jess narrates some of the clips, saying she feels watched in that space and that Derek died suddenly last year. That context of grief is important. Spaces meant to hold memory can also hold tension. Attics are full of natural culprits. Thermal gradients and airflow under eaves create tiny currents that move a hanging sheet of paper or make loose insulation settle and thump. Small animals, mice, squirrels, or bats, scurry through and can create shadowy shapes. Phone cameras, especially in low light, can produce banding, flicker, or focus hunting, which the eye reads as movement or presence. Auto-exposure changes can make a patch of shadow bloom into light, and vice versa. The phenomenon of pareidolia, seeing faces and intent where random patterns exist, is particularly active when we're emotionally primed, as Jess clearly is. That emotional overlay is not trivial. When someone is grieving, their attention narrows and their senses read spaces differently. That makes their footage fascinating in two ways. First, because it captures genuine lived experience. Second, because it shows how much our interpretation depends on who's watching. A faint thud in an empty attic may be a raccoon. It could also be a building settling under a temperature drop. Or it could be nothing we can explain at all. Either way, the human story is central. The camera records a moment, and that moment folds into a memory that will last far beyond the file. Live streams add another layer, social proof in real time. Clip 6 was captured during a late-night beauty live stream. A makeup streamer sat at her desk, chatting with hundreds of viewers as she applied eyeshadow. Behind her, a plain bedroom door stays shut. Midway through a lull, a small child-sized hand appears momentarily between the frame of the door and the wall, presses briefly, then withdraws. The chat erupts in real time. "Did you see that?" "There's something behind you." Viewers scream over the feed, and some immediately scold moderators for letting a child into the room. The streamer swears she was alone and later pulled the saved VOD. The clip is short, but the reactions are raw. Live footage carries extra credibility because it's witnessed simultaneously by many people who can point out artifacts or confirm timing. But live streams are also vulnerable to a range of technical oddities. Streaming platforms compress video in real time. Compression glitches can create phantom pixels that momentarily align into a hand-like shape. Latency and frame drops can freeze a frame and then decode the next slightly altered frame, producing jumpy artifacts. Someone could have briefly stepped off camera and back on. A pet could have stood on the other side of the door. A person could have leaned into the doorway and then pulled away. There's also the possibility of a prank, especially during interactive streams where viewers sometimes coordinate misdirection. The real-time reaction of the chat makes this clip emotionally powerful. Hundreds of witnesses all reporting the same optical event at the same instant is not the same as a single shaky phone clip. Social proof can push us toward believing a moment is authentic, but it can also amplify a misread. The crowd's conviction doesn't equal proof. It does, however, make the clip worth taking seriously. Rural roads are where perception plays tricks on low light. Our 7th clip was recorded by a group of friends driving a country lane late at night. They stop after noticing an oddly slow, pale figure walking along the verge. The person is wearing a long, light-colored garment and moves with a deliberate, almost gliding gait. From the shaky phone footage, it's hard to judge scale at first, and the friends squint, ask each other if they should pull over, and debate calling the police. Eventually the figure passes, and when the group reviews the video later, the face is not clearly visible, and the body seems to carry a small, unnatural stiffness. Low-light filming multiplies error. Cameras struggle with exposure and focus, and a white garment will reflect whatever light exists. Headlights, street lamps, or the phone's screen, while the background disappears into black. Motion blur can create the impression of a trailing second figure or a halo. A hooded coat snagging on brush, a reflective backpack, or the contour of a roadside sign can all produce the sense of a pale apparition. Fatigue and the adrenaline of an unexpected sight can push observers toward dramatic interpretations too. And yet, folklore and expectation will always color an image like this. The silhouette of a figure on a dark road is one of those culturally loaded images that reads as uncanny even if there's a mundane explanation. In darkness, scale is deceptive, and the brain tends to fill gaps with the most salient story it knows. The friend's unease is authentic. The footage doesn't need to prove anything other than that. For a brief moment on a quiet road, a group of people were genuinely unsettled. We end with a clip that, for many viewers, is the hardest to shrug off. A group of co-workers were hiking on a bright late summer afternoon. Someone snapped a live photo, the iPhone feature that captures a short sequence of frames around a primary still. In the single frame chosen as the photo, everything looks normal. Boots on a trail, a swing of sunlight through leaves, a colleague in mid-step. But when the uploader plays the live photo sequence forward and back, there is one frame in the burst, just 0.1 to 0.2 seconds, where a pale, gaunt face appears behind the hiker's shoulder. It's not a shadow. It's a rounded skull, deep eye sockets, a drawn mouth. The face is gone in the frames immediately before and after. The co-workers insist they didn't see anyone behind them when the picture was taken. They shared the clip to ask, "What is this?" Live photo bursts are interesting evidence because they are not a single frozen instant. They include frames before and after the shutter, capturing micro-moments that a single photo does not. That makes them harder to fake in a simple way. You'd have to insert a face into a continuous sequence without making the edit obvious. But live photos are not immune to manipulation. A skilled editor can composite a brief frame into a burst. The phenomenon of motion parallax can create ghost-like overlaps. Reflections on a lens or a quick head movement, just as the shutter fires can project a face-like shape into one frame. Light glare from a passing cyclist, a peculiar alignment of foliage, or even a finger partially covering the lens can all yield a grotesque shape in a single frame. There's also a more prosaic possibility. Someone shuffled behind the group for a split second and was obscured in most frames by the hiker in the foreground, but visible for one micro-instant when a small gap opened between bodies. Because live photos capture a sequence, that moment becomes visible on playback. That scenario would be awkward and unsettling, but not supernatural. On the other hand, if multiple people present at the scene swear absolutely no one was there, and if a careful analysis rules out reflections, lens artifacts, and editing traces, the clip becomes harder to explain. What makes this clip our climax is the way it collapses time and reveals a possibility we miss in real time. A face, caught and gone, living between frames. Whether it's a prank, an innocent misalignment, or something we can't name, it lodges in memory. Live photo bursts give you that uncomfortable feeling of glimpsing something that only exists when you slow the world down. That feeling is the essence of these 8 clips. What ties all of these together is not a single answer, but a pattern of questions. Cameras are impartial recorders of light and motion, but they're limited by angle, sensor behavior, compression, and the simple fact that they only show what happens in front of them. Live witnesses and animals can add credibility, and repeated patterns across time strengthen a case. But each time we move from "something happened" to "what does it mean?" we encounter a tangle of alternative hypotheses: mechanical failure, environmental causes, human pranksters, camera artifacts, simple misperception. There's an ethical dimension in all this too. Many of these clips come from people who are vulnerable. An elderly woman worried about nights alone, a young person grieving a lost friend, hospital staff navigating an institution that should be safe. Respecting that emotional truth is as important as dissecting pixels. We can be skeptical without being dismissive. Doubt and empathy are not opposites. They can coexist in the same viewing. If you had to pick one clip that unsettled you most, which one would it be? Vote in the comments below. The Chateau door, Max the dog, grandmother's pattern, hospital corridors, Jess's attic, the livestream hand, the woman in white, or the hiking live photo. Tell us why. Were you convinced by technical details or by the human story behind the footage? Share this with someone who'll watch it with the lights on, and if you've captured something like this yourself, send it our way. We may feature your clip in a future episode. None of these 8 videos proves anything definitive. What they do is force a pause. Look longer, listen harder, and weigh the evidence with both head and heart. Cameras both reveal and conceal. They can make us complicit witnesses to moments that would otherwise slip into memory, and they can refuse tidy answers. Which of these 8 would you not walk past alone?